was basking in, drowning in it.
Hey everyone, I'm Nick Cruz, aka VoiceofCross, and today I'm joined by a hip-hop musician from South Florida, Mass Hollow. Dude, how you doing today, bud? How's everything going?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing? It's just, I'm surviving this pandemic and just taking it day by day. That's all you can do.
I feel you. I feel you. So, before we get started, I find it very interesting is because so for people that are listening in, one of the interesting things about yourself and me is that you're actually good friends with my brother Eric. He was kind of the person that introduced me to your music. And over the years that I've known my brother, as growing up, he would always show me his music friends, like whether it be rock music or hip hop. And I would always be kind of like the guy that would always hear the different things he'd be telling me. He's like, "Oh yeah, you got to check out this guy. Oh yeah, you got to check out this other guy." And I'm always kind of like, kind of low, optimistic about it. But then he showed me your music, and I remember this clearly because it was back in 2012. He showed me your first two albums, which was In Between and Hypoxia, and I was absolutely blown away. I was like, "Yo, who is this man?" And it was just one thing. I've always been a fan since day one when I first heard your music back in the day. And so I'm really, really glad that you and I have been able to keep touch over the time with, and you still are good friends with my brother. But there is a lot of burning questions that I have as well. Yeah, there's a lot of burning questions that I have, and I'm sure some people are curious to know. So let's start off with your stage name. Every artist usually has a deep meaning behind their stage name. So where did you come up with Mass Hollow?
I can't necessarily say it was deep, but I think everybody, once they start rapping, they hit a threshold where they're like, I can't just use my real name. I'm like, this is becoming its own entity. So you just have to take it and like basically create the identity. And at the time I was big into like a lot of Def Jux artists, and they all had like long names or names with multiple words in them. So like I was big into Cannibal Ox and Vast Air, Del the Funky Homo Sapien, just things of that nature, long names. So I was like, all right, so I want a name with two words or more in it. That's guaranteed. And I think I was just driving, trying to think of names, and I saw a street sign that said like Hollow Drive or Hollow something. And I was like, all right, that's something to go on. And I just kind of molded over. And I was like, all right, Mass Hollow. And it's kind of like a double entendre because it's like something that's taking up space and it's there and you can see it, but when you look deeper, there's really nothing. There's nothing there. It's so it's kind of It's like an oxymoron. It's really not that deep, but it's there.
Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. That's actually really, really creative. I love it. I love it. I love it. And it's a very, very creative stage name for sure. And I think it fits into a lot of your different styles of music and everything that you discuss. And which actually leads to the big question that, music, and I know we both can agree on this, music is seen as an expression of the mind and the soul. So where do you draw a lot of your inspiration from?
I really just think I'm trying to work my own stuff out, honestly, and I think
Right.
that the way it works is like when most people start making music, as far as like being a writer, you start writing and it's not palatable at all. So like if I showed you the songs that I wrote when I first started writing, it's nonsense. So the more you delve into like expressing yourself and writing, the more you want to put a structure to it and make it more palatable for an audience. So now it's kind of like a thought experiment where I think of something and I just want to figure out a way to write it and be as true as possible to how I feel, but also make it as relatable as possible to people outside of myself. So I really just draw inspiration from day to day life, interactions that I have, just observations that I make, and it's really just me trying to like piecemeal all of those things into its own unique story and give out to the world.
And it's great too because and I hear that a lot of times in your lyrics as well. I'm always listening, and I can feel that raw emotion, especially when you're laying down the bars and everything. I'm just like, man, I feel this, and it's very relatable as well. But let's start from that very, very, very beginning, the humble beginnings as we call it. Your first album, In Between, which was released back in 2012. What was your thought process, emotions going in to record for the first time?
Man, it's really hard to pinpoint it at the time, because it was all brand new. Recording was new for me. it wasn't something I took too serious. I just was drawn to it, and I felt like I had something to say. And it was called In Between because I was in like a transitional period of my life. I mean, I graduated high school around that time. I moved to Maryland, and then I started writing in Maryland just because I didn't have much of a social life, and I needed to have some kind of connection to people or like process my thoughts in some way. So then when I came back down to Florida, it was like I was on the fence about whether I wanted to finish school, what I was going to do with my life. And I was just kind of like in between, directions. So I just wrote and wrote and wrote. And that was the one thing that was constant. And at the end of it, I just had a cohesive body of work that I just I recorded. And that was just kind of my way to work out what I was going through at the time and what direction I wanted to take my life.
That's actually really interesting because it definitely shows the different things you're talking about in your lyrics. Once again, you really felt like you were in between different aspects of your life, and even still, then once that first album was completed, I'm sure there was like a lot of different emotions you're running through your mind when it was completed. I mean, how did you feel after it was done, and what did your friends think about it? What was like the general audience reception of it?
I think that it was interesting because it was the first time I put anything out, so I think people received it well. I think my music's not everybody's cup of tea just because of the content, and it's not dance music in a way. And especially at that time, it was very unrefined. So like, I still hadn't found my sound yet. I didn't know what direction I was going musically, even though I was trying to work out what direction I was going to go in my life. And I think that it was received well. It was well enough that I kept going. So I didn't quit. So the reception was okay, but I was still very, very rusty at the time and trying to like refine myself. But it was a good push. Like, okay, I could do this. Like, I can get better.
And just speaking of which, you did not give up, you didn't quit, and you definitely saw that inspiration because then right after that you released another album right after, which was Hypoxia. So was there a bit of a different influence that second time around when you went to make the second album, or?
Um, it's really hard to say because it's been so long. I think that I was just motivated after putting the first one out, and I was like, "What am I gonna do now?" And I was just motivated by trying to get better. And I think with Hypoxia, I wanted to write better music, better songs. So I was just trying to refine the actual delivery and the format um, from what I did on In Between. Because there's songs on In Between that I love, but they're super rough. So I was just trying to push that concept a little bit further.
Right, and let's taking a quick step back, mentioning those first two albums. Thinking after those first two albums were done back then, did you feel like it would set the tone and foundation for Mass Hollow?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I just kind of like came up with the name and the meaning followed. So I feel like the music started to fall in line with the name and the ideology behind the name, and it's kind of like a self fulfilling prophecy. Like, I gave the name, and then the sound just kind of fit into that box.
And so everything kind of came into a cohesive first two albums, and then the fateful day you and I first met, and the reason why I remember this date specifically, you and I met on exactly September 17, 2013, which was for the midnight release of GTA 5. And at that time, you and I did like a little mini performance, which is when I first got to meet you. That's back then when I was DJing and performing with music and everything. And I just find that so crazy that it was a very specific date and everything. And so that's the first time I got to hear you perform. And I think you and I can both agree as musicians and performers that, there's always these unique events and everything. And since then, you've done other live performances. So what would you say over the time, which performance has stuck the most out to you?
So hard to pinpoint one, but there's a producer, rapper, artist from down here named Shark Anthony, and he used to throw these shows called Lotus or Lords of the Undersound, and it was at Funky Buddha before Funky Buddha expanded into the big conglomerate that it is now and got bought out by Corona. But it was
Yep.
a humble little place in Boca, a little hookah slash brewery, and we just threw some great events there. And I just remember performing. I want to say this is like 2 years after that performance, and there was just something special about the time and that event and what was going on in the community at that time, because South Florida, above Miami, the music scene is strange here. It's weird waters to navigate. So when you do finally find a place where there's people that are coming and that are engaged and like there's a community, it's a breath of fresh air, and it makes you feel good about what you're doing.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I always remember there were so many different artists who used to go out to Funky Buddha back in the day like that too, and they used to do stand up comedy. I remember that, man. Oh my gosh, that brings me back. Wow, yeah. So they definitely had a lot of cool, interesting performances.
But yeah, because that's another thing. Funky Buddha used to have like open mics every Wednesday, and it was like the longest standing South Florida all arts
Yep.
open mic, and it used to have a pretty decent turnout. That's actually, I want to say it's the first place, maybe the second place I ever like touched a stage was because of those open mics. And but the event I'm talking about, they also had like actual shows that people would throw. So
Right.
yeah, it was all around good creative space, and I really wish that there might be. I mean, not in this climate, but there might be other places like that where you can just kind of go
Right.
and hone your craft and like meet like-minded people.
Right. And so before you go out to perform, and I know usually a lot of different artists have their own pre-game rituals. Do you have one for yourself? Do you have one where you like kind of like for myself, I used to like scream into a pillow like an unholy war scream. Do you have like a pre-game ritual you use yourself?
I usually just have a existential crisis, and that's enough for me to go and try to prove that I'm alive. But yeah, I mean, nothing really. Usually, I just tell myself it's gonna go one or two ways. It's either gonna go horrible or go well. So, um, you get to decide which way this is gonna go, and that's usually enough of a motivation for me to just be like, all right,
True.
well, if something goes bad, it is what it is. That was just one of the two options. It was a 50-50 shot, and if it goes well, like awesome, like it's just another side of the same coin. It sounds super
That's
negative, but
respectable. I like that.
it's
That's a
not.
lot better than you. No, it's good. It's a good motivator. It's like a two-faced version of performing pre-game rituals. I love it.
Exactly.
But I respect it. One of the things is it's interesting. One of the things
There's
that
so
I
much
find interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
there's so much that is out of your hands. Like things can go wrong. I think even if I'm thinking back, that performance we did, like something was fucking up. Like during, can I curse? I think I've been cursing this whole time, so
Yeah,
it doesn't
go
matter.
ahead for it.
Either way, but yeah, I think something was messing up that performance. So it's like you can't control certain things. Like you can only control the way you're reacting to them. So I just look at it like I can only control what I can control, and if you run out of breath, if something happens, like you just got to keep moving, and it is what it is.
Like the good old saying goes, the show must go on. That's the
Exactly.
big saying.
Exactly.
So now looking back at your performances and everything, do you have any funny stories you can share from your performing days?
Nah, not really. Nothing crazy has happened realistically. I mean, I've played I played this show. Yeah, really nothing really crazy has happened. There's a house party that I played up in, I want to say, Daytona, that was pretty awesome, and there was just a whole bunch of chaos going on because it was a party. But I don't really want to put anybody on blast, but it was a good night.
We'll leave it at it was a thumbs up. Good night. So now that you've done performances and everything, have you ever thought about doing like a tour, or and if you were to do a tour, I mean, where would you like to perform, or where would you like to go for an event?
Um, touring is different lifestyle. It's a whole different beast, and some people are built for it, and some people aren't. I don't think it necessarily clicks with my personality type. I'd like to do a short run tour of the East Coast, and obviously I would hit like Maryland, New York, Atlanta, and then different towns in Florida. But really the opportunity just hasn't arose, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work setting up those tours, and it can be, you have to have a lot of skin in the game. And I think right now, as far as music, like that's been the question that I ask myself all the time is, why am I doing this? Like, what is the point of this? And I think in this day and age, you can kind of customize the way you want to pursue something, or you can customize the way that you approach something. So I would like the tour, but I would never want my bread and butter to come from touring. You know what I mean? And
Right. Right.
if it works, it works. If the opportunity arises, I'm gonna take it. But I'm not so much focused on that right now, because I don't necessarily want to make it in the traditional sense. Like, realistically, I like using music as just a bit of a way to express myself. And I find, when it's like anything else, once you start making money and your living is based on your art, um, then you have all these outside influences, because you're worrying about more than just art. You're worrying about, am I going to make money from this? Is this going to be palatable? Is this, there's just so many influences. So yeah, if the opportunity arises, I'm going to self-fund a tour once this pandemic is over. But I'm not going to live on the road. It's just not in line.
Right. Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, we definitely look forward to those future performances once this whole pandemic is over. We definitely, I know my brother and I always talk about. I was like, yo, next time Mass, like we gotta go, we guys gotta go. So we definitely got your support when that time comes around. But let's fast forward a little bit. Let's talk about present. You've gone to release a few other albums and some recent singles as of recent actually. Some of those songs in 2020 include "Care for Me," "Candlesticks," and your most recent track, "The Scene," which was released in August. So over the years, music artists tend to change their style or their craft. So what things have you changed since you first started?
uh I think right now my main focus is adapting the sensibilities and my sound to like a more modern palette. So I used to really be attracted to like traditional boom bap beats, very simple, just sample drums and bass line, and that's it. And now I'm kind of moving into just more modern contemporary beats, but still keeping my content uh, in line with my value system and what I created in the past. So really it's just about repackaging what I've been already doing and pushing it a little bit further and putting it on more contemporary instrumentation.
And do you have like a newfound and that's fair. But would you say you found like a new source of influences with a lot of changes that have come over the years? Like, has there been like a new source of influence in the lyrics and everything? Would you say?
I would say yeah, but I mean, it's really hard for me to take a step outside of myself and look at it with any kind of intention, because I'm a fan of music first and foremost. So I'm always listening to different genres of music. Um, all of the new artists that come out, I keep up to date with all of it. So it, I've probably been influenced by everybody that I listen to going forward, and it's just such a hodgepodge of influences that I couldn't trace it back to what influenced what.
Right.
So, yeah.
So it is kind of hard to pinpoint where that one specific source of that inspiration comes from because things and I think you would agree as well as like social media and the way that we get news and everything has changed over the last few years and so all those kind of influences come from those different places and to really change everybody's craft and the way that we see things and how we see the world today. So yeah, there's definitely been a lot of those changes. But let's talk about something a little bit different real quick because this one was a big interest. Your last music video that I could pull up was Wake Up Now," which is on YouTube. It's a little bit trippy and it's unique on its own way. So what was kind of the thought process on making that video?
it was more about the imagery of uh of the video than anything else. I just wanted something that was going to kind of grab people's attention. There's really not much. I mean, I could sit here and pull like split hairs and kind of give you a meaning that I think of on the spot, but I think that like I think intention and meaning is pretty fluid. I mean, retrospectively, I can look at it and say, "Oh, that's why I was doing this and this and this." But in the moment, I don't think it was as thought out as the meaning I could give it right
And if you could change that meaning, what kind of meaning would you give it now?
now. So the song's called "Wake Up Now," and it's kind of like about looking at I don't know, life is just very, very weird. And for anybody that knows, Wake Up Now, I want to say in like 2007, 2008, around that time, it was a like a Ponzi scheme. It was a pyramid scheme that came down. And I feel like in a lot of ways, like the world that we live in, so many systems run on that Ponzi scheme system, like where it's just like you just need to believe the next person, and then the next person believes the next person, and the next person believes the next person, and it all trickles down from the top. So it's kind of like the video is more about me or the main character basically like just living his life and just around all these people, and then slowly when the contacts come in slowly changing and kind of inheriting like these belief systems and falling in line with the system and being in that pyramid scheme. And that means like he's woke, he's like aware of like all these issues and these things that everybody around him is aware of, and um he's falling in line with the system in a sense.
Gotcha. And with that being said, that was a really really unique music video on its own when it was released. Are you planning on to doing more music videos in the future?
Yeah, most definitely. I'm linking up with my boy Vincent Peters at Sumo Audio. He just he's getting a lot more into videography, so we'll be going out pretty soon and shooting some videos and trying to basically flesh out more higher budgeted works now that I can throw a little bit more money behind everything because everything's self funded. So yeah, we're just gonna try to keep one upping ourselves and taking it to the next level with everything we do.
And now you started a new thing that we've been watching on YouTube that I always keep my eyes open for, which is called Fort Mike. What can you tell us about that idea? Where did it come from?
I feel like everything that I'm doing on YouTube between Fort Mike and the other series that I started up called Writing Prompt it was just because I felt like I wasn't putting out as much music as I could have, and I wasn't like giving as much time to the craft as like I could have, and I felt like there was always an excuse in my way, like oh I got writer's block, or oh I'm not inspired, or oh what am I going to talk about? I've talked about the same thing, and I think putting myself on this writing schedule. And also introducing myself to ideas and concepts that I wouldn't normally explore and knowing that I have to stick to this schedule or stick to this time limit, it kind of breaks that ideology of, oh, I can't write because I am not inspired. It just forces you to do. And I've found that just by saying, okay, well, you have to write a verse this week, you have to write a verse today, you have to write a verse in an hour, that just kind of propels me to get the momentum because getting started with anything is the hardest part. I mean, it's like going to the gym. Nobody
Right.
really wants to motivate themselves to go to the gym, but getting there is the hardest part. Once you're there, it's like, okay, well, I'm here, so I can either not do anything or I can try. And then once you try, you kind of you build momentum and you roll out and roll forward and keep going and keep going. And I feel like the YouTube series are what's helping me do that. I mean, my output this year is higher than any of the other years, and I'm dedicating more time, even though technically I have less time than I did in my past when I was younger. So it's just a good way to kind of keep me on my toes, keep me fresh, and keep me moving forward. And it's also it's helping my memory because like I have to write these things and memorize these things in the same week because there's just something about holding a phone and rapping that I was never a fan of. Like I don't want to be like this, and it just takes away from the experience of the video. So it helps me memorize, and it's kind of pushing my limits and helping me better myself.
So yeah, it seems to me like it's building that really good discipline, building that reputation to make it like a muscle memory itself. So that's awesome that you're doing that. So with Fort Mike, are you planning on having a maybe a possible special one-time guest in the future?
Um, no, I think that the only time I would do that, I've been producing a little more and like kind of getting myself into those waters. So I think I will either just start like playing out beats myself on there, or I'll have like somebody come through with a guitar or somebody come through with a different instrument and maybe like shake it up that way. But as far as like vocals, unless they're singing, like I don't really see the value in bringing somebody else on that show. What I will do is for writing prompt, which is the show where basically it's like a roulette wheel of user submitted topics and it lands on one. So say dogs, it lands on dogs. I have an hour to write a verse about dogs or a song about dogs. That I will bring people on because I see the value in collaboration there, and it's just a fun little
Okay.
writing
Okay.
exercise.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, and that was the next thing too. With writing prompts as well, I find that such a really cool and unique segment that you do because you are in that short span of time, and you really push yourself to really write a whole verse in such a short span of time with an instrumental. So talk us a little bit behind writing prompt because it's a really cool segment.
Really, I mean, I wanted to start building my YouTube channel, and I started FM, and I just was trying to think of other content that would have been interesting to me that I would want to watch, and then also, I don't want to do reaction videos. I don't want to fall into a lot of the cliches that YouTube artists fall into, and really that's everything about my brand is like I don't want to compromise my value system or like do something that I deem as corny. So um I thought that that fit in the box of something that I thought was a cool idea. It's gimmicky, but it's not, over the top gimmicky. And if anything, it's just more of a writing exercise for me because really it's just practice that I'm filming. Because it's like, I'd probably
Right.
still, if I didn't record it, I would probably still give myself those parameters and just do that in my spare time anyway, just to keep the blade sharp.
Absolutely, and you've come such a long way from the start, and you've over the years, and you've released a few albums and some singles. So, what is the future for Mass Hollow?
I think right now I'm just doubling down on. I'm gonna try to double down on YouTube and just continue to try to grow a fan base. And I'm working on an EP and an album, and these two things I want to roll out the right way. I want to really take my time on them, and I want to put some money behind them. And just have some quality visuals and quality marketing, and just see where the future takes me, and just continue to do art.
Awesome, man, and we definitely have your support, and really awesome, to hear that you're releasing new stuff, and I look forward to hearing it. Mass, it was so great to have you for my interview, and thank you so much for just being able to take some time out to chat with me. Do you have anything you want to plug? Do you have any like special shout outs or where people can find your music and check you out?
Yeah, just search me on Spotify at Mass Hollow. Also, follow me on Instagram. I post there most frequently. I try to get into Twitter and everything, but it's not my bag. So, yeah, Instagram is the way, and subscribe to me on YouTube. You can find all the links via my Instagram, or just search Mass Hollow on YouTube.
Absolutely, definitely, guys, check him out. He's super talented. You can hear his music on Spotify. Make sure you subscribe to him on YouTube and follow him